Have you ever wondered if your decisions, thoughts, and daily habits are being manipulated without you even realizing it? It may sound crazy, but spiritual forces are working behind the scenes to pull your focus away from what truly matters. This happens more often than we think, and many times we don't even notice it. What you're about to discover could completely change the way you see your spiritual life. Are you ready to open your eyes to these unseen influences? If you want to learn how to resist this manipulation and strengthen your walk with Christ, stay with us until the end of this video. Here we'll reveal the subtle ways spiritual manipulation may be happening in your life and what you can do to fight back. Like this video and subscribe to the channel, because throughout this content, you'll learn how to recognize and overcome these traps. And in the comments, share your commitment to faith by writing, "I will resist." Distraction is one of the subtlest weapons in spiritual warfare. In today's world, it's nearly impossible to take 2 steps without being bombarded by notifications, short videos, and an endless stream of information demanding our attention. And that's exactly the problem. The more distracted someone is, the less room they have to connect with God. In the Bible, Martha was so caught up in her tasks that she didn't even realize Jesus Christ was right there with her. How many times do people do the same, prioritizing what seems urgent over what truly matters? Spiritual manipulation hides in small, everyday choices. A Christian may start the day intending to pray, but then picks up their phone just for a minute. And before they know it, 30 minutes have gone by scrolling through their feed. The same thing happens with seemingly harmless entertainment that steals away hours that could be spent strengthening one's faith. This doesn't mean technology and leisure are bad, but when they replace spiritual reflection, they become subtle traps. Faith requires focus, but how can we stay focused in the middle of so many distractions? A practical solution is to set boundaries. Scheduling social media breaks, silencing notifications during prayer and Bible study, and even using a journal to write down reflections are all effective strategies. Small changes, like starting the day with a Bible verse instead of immediately checking your phone, make a huge difference. After all, if the enemy can't destroy someone's faith, he'll try to weaken it through distraction. And what seems harmless today may eventually lead to a crisis of faith. Materialism is a golden trap. It shines, it tempts, and it promises happiness, but it never truly satisfies. Society teaches that success is measured by what you own: the newest car, the dream house, designer clothes. The problem? This endless pursuit shifts our focus away from what is eternal. When someone places money and material possessions above everything else, faith becomes just an afterthought. Jesus Christ made it clear, no one can serve 2 masters. And yet, how many people spend their whole lives trying to prove they can? Spiritual manipulation happens when the desire for more turns into an obsession. A person convinces themselves that they just need a little more to finally feel secure and happy. But then, they buy a new car and immediately want the next model. They get a better job, but soon start looking for an even higher-paying one. Materialism is never satisfied because it always places happiness in the future. Meanwhile, time for God, church, and even family starts to shrink, without the person even realizing it. And by the time they do, they're already caught in the cycle. The key is moderation. Owning things isn't the issue. The issue is when those things own you. Practicing gratitude for what you already have, setting aside time to give and help those in need are powerful ways to break this cycle. Simple actions, like donating clothes you no longer wear or investing more time in relationships instead of shopping, can help realign your priorities. Materialism leads people away from their spiritual path, but recognizing it is the first step toward breaking free from this subtle trap. Small disagreements can turn into walls that separate families, friends, and even fellow believers. A careless comment, an unresolved disagreement, before you know it, resentment takes root. The enemy knows that division weakens, so he fuels hurt feelings and wounded pride. How many relationships have been broken simply because no one was willing to take the first step toward reconciliation? The Bible teaches that anger should not last until the sun goes down, yet how many sleepless nights have been caused by unresolved conflicts? Spiritual manipulation happens when pride gets in the way of forgiveness. The heart hardens, the mind creates justifications, and suddenly the other person is seen as an enemy. The worst part, many times people don't even remember the root of the problem. They just know they refuse to give in. This happens in families, marriages, friendships, and even within the church. Social pressure doesn't help either. Don't let them walk all over you. Stand your ground if you want respect, but what if true respect is found in understanding, patience, and the willingness to resolve rather than to win? The solution requires humility. Pride says they should apologize first, but faith teaches us to forgive before we're even asked. A simple, "Can we talk?" can break years of resentment. Practicing empathy, trying to understand what the other person is feeling, is a powerful antidote. Small gestures like sending a sincere message or praying for the person you have conflict with help pave the way for reconciliation. After all, Jesus Christ called us to live in peace, and as long as bitterness fills the heart, true peace will always feel out of reach. The need for acceptance has led many people away from their faith without them even realizing it. Whether at work, among friends, or even within their own family, there's that silent pressure. If I don't fit in, I'll be left out. Little by little, they start giving in. At first, they laugh at jokes that would have bothered them before. Then they avoid talking about Jesus Christ to avoid seeming too religious. Before they know it, their faith is suffocated by the expectations of others. But is it really worth trading spiritual convictions for temporary approval? This kind of spiritual manipulation is subtle because it disguises itself as something harmless. Everyone does it. It's no big deal. God understands. These phrases ease the conscience, but distort the truth. Hypocrisy begins when someone starts living a faith that only looks strong on the outside, acting committed at church but blending in with the crowd elsewhere to avoid judgment. The problem? This inconsistency slowly erodes authentic faith, and in the end, the person becomes someone they no longer recognize. Social pressure never delivers what it promises. It only trades inner peace for the anxiety of trying to please everyone. The key is deciding who you're truly living for, God or people. Standing firm in faith doesn't mean being arrogant or intolerant. It means knowing where you can't compromise. If your faith makes others uncomfortable, maybe they're the ones who need to reflect. Choosing friendships that strengthen your spiritual walk and learning to say no with confidence are powerful strategies. True acceptance doesn't come from the world, but from God. And those who remain faithful, even in the face of resistance, will find a freedom that social pressure could never offer. The day begins, and worries immediately take over. Work, studies, bills to pay, endless to-do lists. In the midst of this daily rush, faith gets pushed aside. I'll pray tomorrow. I'll read the Bible later. I'll make up for it on Sunday. But tomorrow never seems to come, and when it does, it brings new demands. That's the real trap, making what feels urgent seem more important than what's truly essential. People tell themselves they're just postponing their time with God, but in reality, they're letting their faith become irrelevant. Spiritual manipulation creeps in when routine becomes a constant distraction. What was once planted in the heart starts getting choked out, and before they know it, they're drifting spiritually. One day without seeking God turns into a week, then a month, and suddenly what used to be a priority is now just an afterthought. The excuse, "I don't have time," hides an uncomfortable truth. There's always time for what we consider essential. If there's time for social media, entertainment, and small talk, why not for faith? The solution is to realign priorities. Setting aside even 10 minutes a day to pray and meditate on God's Word can transform your routine. Small habits, starting the day with gratitude instead of checking your phone, listening to worship music while doing daily tasks, help keep the focus on what truly matters. What comes first in your daily life reflects what holds first place in your heart. And when God takes that position, everything else falls into place naturally. The modern world never stops. Flashing lights, constant notifications, fast-paced music everywhere, it all fights for attention. And in the midst of all this noise, silence becomes rare. But it's in silence that our connection with God grows stronger. When the mind is constantly occupied with visual and auditory distractions, there's little room left for spiritual reflection. Continuous distraction may not seem dangerous, but it's one of the most subtle traps, pulling people away from God's presence without them even realizing it. Spiritual manipulation happens when people start relying only on what they can see and feel, ignoring what is eternal. If something can't be touched, smelled, or displayed, does it really matter? That's how faith starts to be diminished, because the invisible loses ground to what is immediate and tangible. Just look at how people seek comfort in material things, status and recognition, while neglecting what doesn't bring instant gratification. The temptation to live only by what the senses perceive creates a barrier between man and God. The key is to rediscover the habit of contemplation and inner listening. Turning off screens for a few minutes, setting aside moments of solitude and praying without distractions are ways to break free from dependence on the physical world. Jesus Christ often withdrew to pray in silence, showing us how essential it is to find quiet spaces to strengthen our faith. After all, if everything around us is fighting for our attention, maybe it's because there's something incredibly valuable they don't want us to find. The church has never been perfect. After all, it's made up of imperfect people. But there's a big difference between acknowledging its flaws and using them as an excuse to walk away. One of the most effective strategies to lead someone astray spiritually is to turn human mistakes into reasons to abandon faith. How many times have we heard, "I don't go to church anymore because it's full of hypocrites," as if faith depended on the behavior of others? This subtle mindset weakens fellowship and isolates those who could grow spiritually in a community. Manipulation happens when people confuse the church with the failures of its members. Yes, there are leaders who make mistakes, fellow believers who judge, and unjust situations, but that doesn't cancel out the church's purpose. Even Jesus Christ knew that wheat and weeds would grow together in the same field, yet he never told us to uproot everything, only to wait for the right time. Falling into the trap of rejecting the church because of human failures is exactly what unseen forces want. An isolated Christian is an easier target. Instead of abandoning the faith community, the best response is spiritual maturity. Find a place where the word is lived out with sincerity, where growth and encouragement happen. If there's hypocrisy, combat it with authenticity. If there's wrongdoing, address it with discernment. Faith should never depend on the actions of others, but on a personal commitment to God. Because in the end, the question won't be, "What did others do?" but rather, "What did you do with your faith?" Few things damage faith as much as the contradiction between words and actions. Someone who appears strong in church but lives completely differently when no one is watching doesn't realize they're being manipulated. Hypocrisy doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's cultivated gradually. It starts with small compromises, convenient justifications, and the desire to please everyone. Before long, faith becomes an empty performance, something displayed on Sundays but forgotten from Monday to Saturday. The trap is subtle because it allows people to feel good about themselves without actually changing. At least I'm going to church, they think, ignoring that real transformation happens in character, not in church attendance. Jesus Christ confronted the Pharisees for this very reason, outwardly impressive but full of corruption inside. The problem was never about making mistakes, everyone does, but about pretending to walk in faith while being far from it. The way out of this trap is brutally honest. Self-examination, asking yourself daily if your actions reflect what you claim to believe, letting go of the need for external validation and focusing on a genuine relationship with God, replacing the mask with authenticity, even if it means admitting failures, because in the end, it's not about looking spiritual, it's about being spiritual. And that difference is what separates those who truly live their faith from those who are just playing a role. At some point, everyone goes through a crisis of faith. That season when prayers seem unanswered, God feels distant, and doubt fills the heart. It's a dangerous place to be because this is exactly when unseen forces work the hardest. Instead of encouraging a search for spiritual answers, temptation leads people to seek distractions, social media, shallow entertainment, anything that numbs the discomfort without actually solving it. The goal? To keep the mind busy enough so it doesn't return to seeking the truth. The problem is that these distractions only offer temporary relief. They don't heal the root issue. The crisis remains swept under the rug until one day it turns into an impassable chasm. Many people don't walk away from faith because of a single event, but because of countless small moments where they chose to escape rather than confront. Doubt itself isn't the issue. The real question is what you do with it. Do you run from it or face it? Do you silence your soul or drown it out with distractions? The answer lies in perseverance, holding on even when faith feels weak. Instead of seeking comfort in empty things, we need to go straight to the source, diving into Scripture, surrounding ourselves with people who strengthen our journey, and above all, continuing to pray, even when we don't feel anything. Because faith isn't based on feelings, it's based on truth, and truth remains truth even when it seems silent. Lukewarm faith is the most dangerous kind because it provokes no resistance and brings no transformation. A person believes in God, but without passion. They go to church, but without real commitment. They pray, but without conviction. It's a subtle trap because it creates the illusion of spiritual security while slowly weakening the connection with Jesus Christ. Unlike a crisis of faith where questions arise, the problem here is complacency. Everything seems fine when, in reality, the fire is dying out. This deceptive form of moderation is often promoted as something good. You don't have to be so extreme, they say. Just find balance. But what kind of balance waters down the truth until it becomes meaningless? A lukewarm Christian isn't persecuted, isn't questioned, doesn't challenge anyone because their faith makes no impact. Jesus himself was clear when he said that this attitude is nauseating, leading nowhere. When faith turns into an empty habit, it loses its purpose. So, what's the solution? Choose a side. This isn't about fanaticism, it's about real commitment. If you want to strengthen your faith, you need to immerse yourself in what sets your soul on fire. Deep study of the Bible, prayers that go beyond empty words, and a life that reflects true transformation. Lukewarm faith keeps people in their comfort zones, but truth demands surrender. And in the end, that's what separates those who merely believe from those who truly live out their faith. Now that you know these 10 subtle ways Satan tries to manipulate our faith, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Are you ready to take action, strengthen your faith, and resist these traps? Change begins with a choice, the choice to no longer be manipulated and to stand firm on the spiritual path that leads to Jesus Christ. Let us know in the comments, which of the ACE manipulations have you noticed in your own life, and how do you plan to guard yourself against them? If this video was helpful to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep learning how to grow in wisdom, discernment, and faith. Knowledge is the key to transformation, and we're here to walk this journey with you. See you in the next video, and remember, the power to resist is in your hands.